The first thing to know about stealth mechanics in GTFO is that there are soft triggers and hard triggers, which are the two ways to wake up enemies. Soft triggers include walking, crouch walking, state changes such as crouching and uncrouching, dashing, jumping and falling, and shining your flashlight on an enemy. Doing a soft trigger near an enemy doesn't immediately wake them up, but puts them into the next detection stage. All asleep enemies, this excludes scouts, have 3 stages through which they progress when affected by soft triggers. The first stage is them being fully asleep. In this state, they have a heavily reduced detection range for crouching and they ignore long-range aggro. More on that later. The second stage is them glowing and clicking. They are alert to their surroundings in this stage. The third stage, throbbing, behaves the same as the second stage, but this will be your last chance to stop affecting them with a soft trigger before they wake up. Hard triggers include many things, such as touching enemies, sprinting, sprint, dash jumps, shoving the enemy taking damage, loud sounds, such as shooting your gun, the sentry shooting, mine explosions, doors breaking, hitting a surface, or smash lock, or failing a hack lock. Also, enemy screaming, proximity aggro, and long range aggro. Gunshots have a range of 50 meters if you're in the same room, which is reduced by 20 meters for every open door or room divider between you and the enemy, going down from 50 to 30 and then to 10. Enemies 3 rooms away cannot be aggroed by your gun shooting. Mines alert enemies in a range of 20 meters if they're in the same room, but they can't alert enemies if they're in a different room. The only exception in behavior to soft and hard triggers are scouts. Scouts only have 2 different types for stages, walking around and feeling. Touching their feelers will make them scream after roughly 1 second, which is enough time to run through the feelers and melee, or just shoot them quickly enough, or even foam them to stop the scream. All soft triggers do is make them put out their feelers faster. Sprinting also only immediately forces them into their feeling stage. They do completely ignore long-range aggro in its entirety. Proximity and long-range aggro specifically are the 2 things to avoid when trying to stealth kill enemies. Long-range aggro needs enemies to be in a detection state. The closest enemy in a detection state, in a range of 30 meters, has a chance to wake up. Long-range aggro is the only trigger in the hard trigger section that doesn't alert enemies 100% of the time. It has a unique percent chance for different situations. Killing an enemy with a knife has a 30% chance. Killing an enemy with any other melee has a 42.5% chance. Light attacks and shoving have a 75% chance. And other ways of waking up an enemy, such as moving into them or walking near them, have a 100% chance. To reliably kill enemies, you first have to understand how many hits you need to do and where, so they die as soon as possible. The most important damage multiplier for stealth is the flanking/back damage multiplier. Depending on the angle you are behind an enemy, you will deal up to 2 times damage to them. This way, a giant that just wouldn't die in 3 or 4 hits before now gets killed by only 3 people in 1 hit each. Giants can be stealthed even if you don't have 3 players, as long as you keep breaking their limbs, keeping them in a hard staggered state. This gives you enough time to either charge the hammer enough again, or have your teammate break the next limb, and then you repeat the cycle. You will know that you're in range when the circle of your melee weapon becomes smaller. Also, check whether your target enemy is actually dead before moving on to the next one. Syncing enemies. You can sync up enemy detection phases in multiple ways, but why should you sync and how does it help? Syncing is done by alerting a specific group of enemies with a soft trigger so that they fall asleep at the same time. This enables killing lone enemies in packed rooms without being at the mercy of the random sleep cycles. This also helps when wanting to move through a packed room that just won't let you move an inch otherwise. Syncing can be done by either shining your flashlight, crouching and uncrouching, or walking a few steps. Controlled alerts with long-range aggro. You can control alerts of enemies and avoid proximity aggro by triggering a specific enemy with long-range aggro. Since only one enemy can wake up from long-range aggro, and the aggroed enemy itself doesn't trigger proximity aggro, this can be quite useful when you want to wake up only a specific small enemy without alerting other close by. Line of sight. Both proximity and long-range aggro won't trigger when the enemies lack line of sight to each other. You can abuse this in multiple ways. If an enemy is on the other side of a wall, it is always safe to clear them, as long as you don't hit the ground. Players themselves and any of their objects don't block line of sight though. Enemy screams. Another important thing to know is that hitting awake enemies does not have any effect on sleeping enemies. So as long as you stand still, there is no chance for a room to wake up unless the enemy screams. A common beginner mistake is that once an enemy wakes up, the whole room is woken. Oh, so they run away and let a scream happen, which then wakes up everything. To improve your stealth gameplay, you should usually move towards the woken up enemy and stop him from screaming by either staggering or killing them. Enemy screams can be cancelled, but the window is often quite short. Also, just because you woke something up doesn't mean you have to kill it yourself. Sometimes it's easier to continually shove and stagger the enemy and wait for your team to come close and help you. Although rarely worth it, you can use Cfoam to safely kill enemies or even stop other enemies from waking up. Under Cfoam, enemies ignore all triggers but taking damage. And since Cfoamed enemies count as pseudo-awake, see with Biotracker, they can't wake up enemies through long-range aggro either. Multikills. All melee weapons can reliably get double and triple kills on sleeping enemies by using the enemy's weak point multipliers and stagger. This means that a team of 4 good players can comfortably stealth kill even groups of up to 12 enemies at once. Fast stealth. Once you understand the ranges for walking and sprinting wake-up distances, you can quickly move between enemies, charging while walking at them and killing them as soon as possible. Then immediately walking to the next target to repeat the cycle. Prioritizing target is a very important skill when stealthing GTFO. Taking out the easy target or the highest priority target first can decide whether you survive the next mistake or not. But in the end, stealth isn't everything. If you come up to a situation where you think you can't stealth the room, shoot the target you don't want to fight first, and then clean up the rest. Good luck. Note: bots are entirely stealthy and can't wake up anything. Whether it's them touching enemies, touching scout feelers, or shooting something, they're entirely incapable of waking up a room.